Our New Testament reading comes from John 10, verses 11 through 18, found in the Pew Bible on page 103. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. The word of the Lord.
Thank you. I noticed recently on the internet that the next installment in the Jurassic Park film series, Jurassic World, will be released in the next few weeks. And I'm sure it will be one of the biggest blockbusters of the summer, as these films have always been. They are wonderful, what we call popcorn movies. Great to take your box of popcorn, and all you have to do is sit back and be entertained. And these films have been very entertaining. But I must admit that the original film, Jurassic Park, is still my favorite. Not only for the technical quality of the special effects, but because of the numerous subplots, some of them humorous, that Steven Spielberg created from the original Michael Crichton story. One of these subplots in the original movie involves the park lawyer, Donald Gennaro, who is placed in the driverless excursion vehicle with the park's developers' 2 grandchildren. Now, none of the adults want to be in that car with the grandchildren, so they kind of shove them off onto the lawyer. In Michael Crichton's original novel, the lawyer is actually a very thoughtful and somewhat heroic individual who survives the various dinosaur attacks all the way to the end of the book. But Spielberg changes the nature of this character completely for the film. And I think he does so for a purpose. In the movie, when the T-Rex attacks the broken down convoy, some of you may remember, the lawyer cowardly abandons the 2 children, leaving them in the car at the mercy of that ferocious animal. The stunned older granddaughter looks at her little brother and cries out, "He left us! I can't believe he left us." The lawyer hides in a nearby toilet, which sets up, I think, an opportunity for Spielberg to express his view about the legal profession. As the T-Rex abandons its attack on the kids in the car and kind of casually goes over and devours the selfish lawyer. By the way, when this happened in the theater, at least the theater I was in, people literally stood and applauded. They really did, when the lawyer was eaten. In fact, it is the paleontologist who eventually rescues and shepherds the kids to safety, providing the protection, providing the love we expect adults to provide when it comes to children in danger. It is our nature, as it is in nature, to protect our young. The idea of the strong protecting the weak is not just a theme in films or fiction, but an inspirational part of real life. Even in the midst of these horrible tragedies, such as the plague of the mass shootings in our nation's educational institutions, we are moved by the bravery of teachers who have risked, or in some cases, given their lives to protect their students. Imagine working in that kind of atmosphere. Today, as a teacher, you do not know literally from one day to the next if you're going to have to go into lockdown mode. And for a teacher, that means I've got to protect my children. Teachers, perhaps more than any other profession, exemplify that ancient meme of the shepherds who protect the sheep even while incurring great risk to themselves. In the Gospel of John, Jesus connects himself to the shepherd as understood throughout all of the Hebrew Scriptures. The image of the shepherd is extensive throughout the Old Testament, from Genesis to the early prophets, such as Amos, to the post-exilic prophets, such as Zechariah. In Jewish storytelling, the image of the shepherd is one of courage, and care, and protection. You'll recall that Israel's most beloved king, King David, began his life as a shepherd and used a shepherd's weapon, the sling, to defeat Israel's most feared enemy. The prophets use the image of the shepherd as one who leads the flock, feeds and waters them, brings the flock to rest and safety, keeps them together, and defends the flock against enemies. Yahweh is depicted metaphorically as a shepherd in the Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in still waters. And in other places in the Hebrew Scriptures, we see God depicted as a shepherd. But in the New Testament, there is a distinct transformation in the image of the shepherd as compared to the Hebrew Scriptures by Jesus of Nazareth. A very distinct transformation. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. These words of Jesus from the Gospel of John have to be understood in their context. These words follow the story of his healing of a man born blind, a miracle that, in the time of Christ, was certainly identified with divine power. The religious authorities of Israel, those who were charged with spiritually shepherding God's people, challenged the authenticity of the miracle, even to the point of dragging the one healed before them and threatening him. When the man refuses to implicate Jesus as a fraud, how could he? He could see. Israel's shepherds literally drive him out of their presence. An act which totally betrays their responsibilities as keepers of God's flock. And it is then at some later point, not too much later, that Jesus speaks publicly to the Pharisees and the other leaders about their failure as God's shepherds in comparison to the Messiah, whom Jesus calls the good shepherd. He says, the hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because the hired hand does not care for the sheep. Christ's words speak realistically about the spiritual situation in Israel, where the authorities care more about the law than the ones for whom the law of God was given. Jesus' labeling of the religious authority as hired hands is also appropriate, since there was very little personal sacrifice in the nature of their work. The religious leaders in Israel really acted more like lawyers and politicians than shepherds. And the priests in Jerusalem made vast sums of money despite the people's poverty. In fact, they made their money off of the people's poverty. Jesus therefore contrasts the callousness of the hired hands to the love of the good shepherd, using a realistic image from the task of shepherding that was known to everyone. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Dixon was a 20th century British colonial administrator in the Middle East from the 1920s until about the 1940s, and author of several books on Kuwait. In one of the books, Dixon writes about an event that he witnessed while visiting some Arabian shepherds. One evening, shortly after dark, an Arab shepherd began to call out, one by one, the names of his 51 mother sheep, and was able to pick out each one's lamb and restore it to its mother to feed. This was done in complete darkness, and in the midst of the noise coming from the ewes crying for their lambs and the hungry lambs crying for their mothers. Colonel Dixon was astonished at the sheer depth of the relationship between that shepherd and his flock. And in his book, he connects what he saw to Christ's words from John. But Jesus actually goes well beyond this recognizable intimacy between the flock and its leader, using transcendent images that raise the image of shepherding to the level of divine action, and reveals the sacrificial purpose to God's Messiah, meaning to himself. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me. The two images that Jesus uses in those words run counter both to the task of shepherding and to the traditional understanding of the Messiah in Israel's religion. While a shepherd might defend the flock at the risk of his life, the shepherd would never intentionally lay down his life in order to save the flock. In fact, the death of the shepherd would mean the death of the entire flock, which would be left leaderless and unprotected. Additionally, a shepherd would never bring other sheep into the flock if they did not originally belong there. But according to Christ, the good shepherd does. Both images separate the Messiah from Israel's traditional religion and connect the Messiah to Christ and to the will of God. Jesus knew that it was his Father's will that he give up his life, not just for the sake of Israel, but out of God's love for all humanity. Jesus also knew that some would answer the call of the Good Shepherd and others wouldn't. But the call itself would be universal, a spiritual call with no boundaries, no predetermined limitations. So that call went out. It went out at the resurrection. It went out at Pentecost. And that call is still going out today. As for us, how do we respond to the call of the Good Shepherd? Well, we must never forget that the Messiah's call to the sheep is also a call for the sheep to become shepherds. And that's certainly a major variation from the original understanding of what a shepherd is and what a shepherd does. We are called to be the shepherds. Jesus is the Good Shepherd who does not run, not even from death. But we who belong to his flock must not run or hide from the spiritual responsibilities that come with our commitment to Christ. Christian martyr Dietrich Bonhoeffer summarized the meaning of our call to live out the purposes of God's love with these words. That's what he wrote. Jesus Christ lived in the midst of his enemies. At the end, all of his disciples deserted him. On the cross, he was utterly alone, surrounded by evildoers and mockers. For this cause he had come, to bring peace to the enemies of God. So the Christian too belongs not in the seclusion of a cloistered life, but in the thick of foes. There is his commission. There is his work. Bonhoeffer's words leave us with one question. Who needs our shepherding love this morning? There are beasts, you know. Beasts even more dangerous than the long extinct T-Rex that prowl the human heart. Hatred, cynicism, despair, prejudice, greed, apathy, and all their offspring prey upon a humanity whose suffering fills the air with cries for help. And their cries leave disciples with a choice. Hide in the closet, or in the case of that lawyer, the water closet, or fulfill the purpose of God's call and bring the love of the Good Shepherd to all the communities, including our families, that touch our lives. Christ is the Good Shepherd, and this shepherd does not run. This shepherd protects, this shepherd gathers, this shepherd feeds, this shepherd calls, this shepherd forgives, and this shepherd loves. This shepherd does not run, nor must we.